welcome to the TMC Roadshow. This is the San Jose 2012 edition. My name's Rich Tehrani. Thanks for watching. On our program today is a major figure in the communication space, Sherman Scholten, who's a VP of Marketing at Obihai Technology. Obihai Technology.
Obihai, yeah.
I figured Sherman would start off with your rich history in the space because it all ties into what you're doing today. And for those people who may not be familiar with how voice over IP has progressed over the years, why don't you take us back to the early days and what you did and walk us through?
Okay, so I started out in voice over IP actually through video. I was working with video conferencing, and I realized that if you take the video and if you take the data collaboration out of video conferencing and just left with audio, you had something. And especially with the growth of broadband at the time, that was when DSL was first coming out, cable modems weren't even around then, that you could run a voice call over an internet connection. You could go coast to coast. You could go around the world just for the cost of then a dial-up call, but then later on a broadband connection. And that made things like, that made the cost of things like T1s and DS3s, you know, a thing of the past, because now you could just get a consumer-based broadband connection and you could do everything over it. So what I did was initially work with companies that were doing calling cards, that were buying big iron voice over IP gateways, but then as, again, broadband started making it into more people's homes and consumer electronics started to become more sophisticated and building in more technology that supported voice over IP, then another light went on because you could see that people now could just connect a regular telephone to a device that was connected into their broadband router, or you could even have that technology integrated in the broadband router, and they had everything that they needed to do voice over IP. So then, you know, a lot of companies were born out of that. Some big names like Vonage, and then a lot of other smaller names. But really, it's really what's helped propel the industry to what it is today, especially in the consumer and small business space, because devices have come into being that are at such affordable price points that can be so useful to people immediately as long as they have a connection to the internet.
And really simple to use, right? You plug in here, you plug in there, and you've got dial tone
yeah.
for the most part, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's the very simplistic way to put it, and that's how we want people to think of it. But behind the scenes, there's a whole provisioning architecture that goes into these devices. There's a whole management and troubleshooting architecture, because again, that voice call is going over a hostile internet connection. You know, these are not private connections to point between my office and your office.
By hostile, you mean just the potential for massive floods of traffic to just swamp the voice traffic, so the voice traffic has latency jitter.
Right, right. And me as a voice over IP service provider, I don't control that internet connection. Right. I don't control the quality of service through that connection. I mean, that's the nature of the internet. But that's also the opportunity that the internet gives us is, sure, you don't have quality of service on the internet per se, but the things that you can put on it, you can really get a lot of value out of it as long as you can keep control of your service that's at the end of that that internet connection. So that's kind of where the magic comes in, I think, to a lot to these devices, is the ability to provision them, the ability to manage them, and the ability to deploy them at a massive scale, yet still keep in control of them and being able to help the customers that might have an issue with them.
Now let's walk through. It was Komodo, and then after Komodo, which was other big player in the market, was this Sapura?
Yeah. So the kind of the legacy of the knowledge base at Obihai really goes back almost 20 years now in the voice over IP and voice over broadband industry. And it started out with companies like Komodo, who made the very first analog telephone adapters. The founder of Komodo, Jan Fandrianto, is the founder of Obihai. After Komodo, there's a company called Sapura, also founded by Jan Fandrianto. Sapura was the basis for a lot of the generation of voice over IP products that some of the largest voice over IP service providers used in their endpoints for their subscribers. And that company was acquired by Cisco and was the basis for a lot of great products with the SPA insignia in the front of the product name. And then out of that experience, Obihai came about, also founded by Jan Fandrianto. And so you could say that.
And you've been with all three of these, right?
No, I've just been with two of them, with just the latest two, Sapura and Obihai.
So that takes us back, what, six years, something like that?
About 8, yeah, 9
years.
years, yeah.
It's a good amount of time. We've seen a lot of change in the market.
Yeah, quite a bit of change. I think that it's like anything. Change happens slowly, but it definitely happens for sure. I think one of the biggest changes that I've seen is the growth of the bring your own device type connection to voice over IP. So voice over IP is so reliable now, and the internet's so reliable now, that people are confident to go out and buy a device that's really not associated with any particular service provider. So I know that I don't have to get a service from a particular service provider and they ship me their box that's locked down. I know now that I can go to an online merchant, I can go to a voice over IP equipment reseller and buy a device, and I can bring my own service to it. And I can bring multiple services to that device, and I can get the use out of my voice over IP connections kind of on my terms. I'm not subject to using a specific device locked to a service. So that's something that I think we all need to kind of take heed of, and that's a real opportunity, that people do have the knowledge and they do have the willingness now to bring their own service to devices like this.
So what are the benefits now? Tell me a little bit about these devices and how they help consumers, and what are they using it for?
So consumers and small businesses are using these devices for many of the same things they've always done, is to try to save money on their phone bill, to try to utilize their IP networks for more things, to leverage all of the benefits that come with using IP networking. You know, you can move devices from place to place, from country to country, and not have to reconfigure everything all over again, or have to sign up for new services because you've got your internet connection. And so now it becomes more of just making that easier and making that more friendly for people that don't have the technical knowledge that was required back in the day. So one of the things that Obihai has done to make that easier is we've created an online portal and used cloud computing to configure the devices and to maintain the configuration on the devices through virtually any secure internet connection. And that's kind of new, because it used to be that you had to get a device from a particular voice over IP service provider that then controlled that device, and if you had any problems, well, you had to call them and they had to figure it out, and it could become a big hassle. But now, by virtue of having a connection to the internet and by having a device that's online, you can get to that device, you can configure it, you can upload software to it. It's really a great innovation in this part of the industry that really wasn't there before we had things like cloud computing.
And this works with Google Voice, right? That's one of the things I wanted to point out.
Yeah, one of the, I guess, the differentiating features of Obihai devices is that they can work with both SIP and Google Voice. And they also have bridging functionality. So I can actually make a call to Google Voice, and I can bridge it to a SIP account, and vice versa. The devices themselves.
Why would you do that?
You might do that because you have a particular calling plan with a SIP account, but you want to access that through your Google Voice number. Okay. You might have a need to have a SIP client, say, running on your smartphone, and you want to be able to get that to Google Voice. And it's really, and I'm kind of talking, from anywhere in the world, you can do that.
Right. So what's next?
Well, so what's next is we are coming out with more products and more accessories to the products. One of the things that we've recently come out with is the Obi Wi-Fi wireless adapter. So with the latest Obi products, the Obi 202, and we just announced an Obi 302, you can use this USB wireless adapter to have your analog telephone device anywhere within reach of your Wi-Fi router. So that really helps, because a lot of times people don't have their telephone in the same location as their broadband router.
And so what's on the other end of this? So this is Wi-Fi, so this sits, let's see, walk us through exactly how this works. So you have your broadband somewhere else, you turn on your Wi-Fi, and then this is just enabled and it connects over Wi-Fi, and then you plug your phone in there, right?
Yeah, so let's say that you have your phone in your den, but let's say that your Wi-Fi router is in your basement, and you want to maintain having your phone in your den.
Sure.
So you just have the Obi 202 in your den, plugged into your telephone, and it's getting to the internet over Wi-Fi.
That's great.
Yeah, no, it's really neat. Yeah.
So, well, thanks for being here today.
Yeah,
It's
thanks a
great
lot,
to talk
Rich.
to you.
It's good to talk to you.
Sherman, great job.
All right, thanks.